Hey everyone, it's Jake at Jake's Metal Chat. Hope you're all well and welcome to episode 84 of my Metal Vaults, where I will be exploring and showing you my favorite albums within heavy metal, to thrash metal, to death metal, black metal, doom metal, sludge metal, folk metal, you name it, all of that excellent stuff, as well as talking about the albums. I'll also be talking about the band, so a brief history and any releases leading up to the album that I have picked. And I've already spoken about one legendary death metal band from the Netherlands, being Pestilence. Here is another one within the world of death doom. These guys are absolute titans of that genre within the Dutch metal scene. And if you know your Dutch metal, you know how many great bands have come out of that country. And there's so many more to cover, and I have so many more bands within the Dutch metal scene as well as the metal scene across Europe to cover. But let's talk about these guys right here. Yet to see them live, but they are playing Cosmic Void next year, and I am planning to go specifically for these guys, and I am talking about Asphyx. Now, a lot of you within the VC will know these guys, but for those who don't, definitely check these guys out. And this album, this is their monstrous debut from 1991. So once again, this is Asphyx, and here is The Rack. This album is just nasty, heavy, monstrous death doom. Released on Century Media Records. This is the re-release because it has live tracks from 1991. Not only, well, of course, we got the CD here. Got a little bit of artwork there, but not only do you just get the artwork like this, is what I was going to say before showing the CD, but you get as well some band pictures right here, be it them live or getting photo shoots within graveyards, which of course a lot of death metal and black metal bands did that because it has that atmosphere and that overall tone. Got the lyrics right there, and you get this. Like I said, I'm a sucker for old school band pictures, photos, and everyone knows that guy right there, Mr. Martin van Drunen, who has a very unique, distinctive style of death metal vocals. And of course, I've mentioned the band that he was in before, be it Pestilence, and here is the album that I've covered already, Consuming Impulse. And man, his vocals on here are just like intense and brutal and just overall awesome. And on here, just equally as heavy and brutal and just in some cases just downright terrifying, especially with this style of metal. But put Van Drunen in an album, be it him in his own band or guest vocals, he just nails it straight away, and he nails it definitely on here. But let's talk about the band first before I talk about this album. Let's talk about Asphyx. Of course, they are from the Netherlands. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name of it, but been there a bunch of times, and uh, just a really nice country, and just yeah, just love the country, and just found a bunch of great bands over there. These two, obviously, band I'm talking about here, and the band that I've already spoken about, and another band I need to speak about because I was looking earlier and I haven't spoken about them yet, and that is Gorefest. But these guys here formed in 1987. They split up in 94, then reformed in 95 to 96, then reformed in 96 to 98. And around that time, they became Soulburn, but now that's its completely different band, a completely separate band. And in 98 to 2000, and then 2007 onwards. So still going strong to this day. and are still currently on Century Media Records. And of course, Van Drunen wasn't in the band from the very beginning. Of course, he was in Pestilence before that, but let's check out the first demo from 1988. They released three demos, two in 89, but here's the first one, which is a completely instrumental one called Carnage Remains. I've not actually heard this one, but I have heard at least one of the demos, one of the first demos that they released. So on here, you got Tony, Bob, and Just. I hope I said that right. Joost. So Tony did the guitars and bass, but Just did bass on here, and Bob did drums. Not sure how many copies that was limited to. It was an independent release. And then we got Enter the Domain from 1989. That was also an independent release, and that had, where is it? Chuck on bass and vocals. So that was their first vocalist that they had in the band, and he was also in Pestilence as vocalist from just in 1986, and was in four other bands as well as Pestilence and Asphyx. Of course, this is a 4-track demo, and if you've managed to get that, then my hat goes off to you, as well as the Crush the Cenotaph demo, which also is the EP from 1992. This is a 4-track demo, which has Theo on vocals and bass, who sadly passed away in 1998. And I think this was the demo that I heard, and it was his vocals I heard first, I believe, or it might have been Chuck. It was one of the two, or I might have heard a little bit of both from their demo days. But yeah, this was also independent release. Not sure how many copies it was limited to, but yeah, another demo that they did that year, and they did one more release in 1989 called Mutilating Process in December of 89, which was a single, which was released on the label Gore Records, which is no longer going, but did have Brutality, Cryptopsy, Dead, Disastrous Murmur, Incubus, and Macabre. Good little lineup right there. And this was a 7-inch vinyl release to 1,000 copies. And of course, this was the last one to feature Theo on bass and vocals. Of course, you got Eric, Bob, and Tony. So Eric on guitars, Tony on guitars, and Bob on drums. And then we get to the split they released in 1991. So 2 years later, they did a split. And this, of course, the year before that is when Martin Van Drunen joined the band. And this split is called In the Eyes of Death, released on Century Media Records, which, of course, features Asphyx as well as Unleashed, Tiamat, Loud Blast, and Grave. So a great lineup right there. And if you have managed to find this 12-inch vinyl, then again, my hat goes off to you. And then in 1991, they did a promo demo completely on their own, not with the label. And this was the 5th of January 1991. Because as a lot of you will know, before Van Drunen just went on to do just vocals, he also played bass in Pestilence. And before I get on to the album in question, I want to see if he did bass in any other bands. And no, it was just Pestilence and Asphyx. He did bass for. Primarily just does vocals, but on this one and their album album after that, Last One on Earth, which I will cover later on. But for now, let's cover The Rack. Released on the 13th of April 1991 on Century Media Records. Of course, I got the re-release from 2006. Now, of course, we got Eric Daniels and Bob Bagus. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Bagchus. I believe that's how it's pronounced. If I got it wrong, I do apologize. And then we got Martin. I'm not going to try and say his last name. He did the synthesizers on here, and you definitely hear the synthesizers on this. And then we had Theo, who did lyrics for a lot of the songs that were on previous demos. Axel, who did the artwork. R. Kampf, who did executive producer. Then Harry on mixing and producing, and Maron, Maron, Marion. I'm probably just butcher that, and I do again apologize. Who did the photography? So that's who did what on this album. Of course, you had Martin. Yeah, you had Martin, Eric, and Bob do doing their respective instruments, and Martin just bringing those excellent vocals on this album right here. And there is 9 tracks overall when it first got released. Like I said, Monday re-release. So let's just talk about those 9 songs. So the first one is an instrumental. There's 2 on here. So the first one is called The Quest of Absurdity, which has some synths in it. Of course, the 7th one, which has also got synths in there. So that starts off that atmospheric tone, because when you hear Death Doom, it always has that atmosphere to it. Sometimes it will be at the start of the album, or you get like full on death metal to begin with, and then you get those doom metal style riffs in there. And then of course that's the appeal to Death Doom, because you get like the fast aggressiveness of death metal, and the slow, heavy atmosphere of doom. And then so from that instrumental, you go into Vermin, which just starts it off on the get go, and then and in every song you get that slow doom metal part before it goes straight back into the death metal, and Vermin starts that all off, and then that leads into track number 3, Diabolical Existence, which again, that level of guitar, drums, and you definitely hear Van Drunen's bass on here, because it's just turned up enough in that mix where you can hear it. And that's what I like with a lot of these albums, with a lot, not just death doom, but death metal, thrash metal, and black metal, doom and sludge, and folk metal. You can hear that bass definitely, and it's always good to hear that, because you hear the drums, which is part of that rhythm section, but it's always good to hear that bass, and you definitely hear it here. And one of my favorite songs got a nice little guitar bit at the start, and that is Evocation, which, man, just from the get go, like it's sped up to death metal, and then it just slows down just a tad, and then you get Van Drunen's vocals right in there. And I mean, I've said this about some vocalists, either here on the channel or not on the channel, but a lot of them are just absolute fucking beasts when it comes to their vocals. And Van Drunen, with his vocals and his bass playing, just that level of just fucking awesomeness right there. Just absolute killer stuff. And then this one, track number 5, Wasteland of Terror, starts all off very doom, that death doom style, and then just straight into some death metal again. Excellent guitar sound, bass sound, drumming. Again, Van Drunen's vocals just topping everything off. And then you got this Sickening Dwell, which, like I said, a lot of these songs have that good balance of death metal and doom metal. And that's what I like about Death Doom. I've been finding myself listening to a lot of Death Doom lately, because obviously being in a Death Doom metal band, I'm just getting more drawn to stuff like that. And, finding bands like just the mention, because obviously they supported them. Consecration supported Asphyx. Not, was it Asphyx? No, I'm pretty sure. No, yeah, they have supported Asphyx. I'm fairly sure. But definitely I can get from them a good amount of this band here. And you get on to Sickening Dwell and you get to the next instrumental, Ode to a Nameless Grave, which is just a really evil sounding title for either a song or just an instrumental. It's still a song, but either be an instrumental one with lyric, it's still a fucking evil sounding song, and I love it. Giving more synths and adding synths into Death Doom is definitely like definitely a way to go. I mean, I've heard synths within bands like, well, obviously a lot of black metal, and of course within Nocturnus, definitely one of the first death metal bands to feature keyboards. And then there's been so many other bands adding in keyboards with just within their albums over the years. But these guys just add it into those two specific bits, and it just it's just so damn good. And I mean, you hear it from time to time, not just those instrumentals, but it definitely adds to that atmosphere. And then you get on to track number 8, which is one of my other favorite songs, Pages in Blood. Again, aggressiveness of death metal, the heavy, slow atmosphere of doom metal. And then to end it all, track number 9, the self-titled track, The Rack, which is the longest song on here, clocking in at 9 minutes and 5 seconds. Just an unrelenting song, and just brings that perfect end to a dark, crushing album. And this is definitely an album, if you've not actually heard it, for those who have not heard Asphyx or heard of Asphyx but don't know where to start, I would say definitely start with the debut, or if their second album's the first one you came across, then definitely go with that one, because that one is just a step higher. Unless you discover the later stuff, then go all the way back to this one, and of course the album I just mentioned. But yeah, this right here is just so damn dark and evil, and with with those synths, with Banjo's vocals, the guitar sound, the bass sound, the drum, it's just put it all together. You got this. And definitely for me, as well as Liam, who's the Death Doom metalhead, and his band Consecration, I definitely an influence for them. But yeah, I just love this band, and I definitely need to see these guys live, because I want to hear songs from this album on that stage. So my overall conclusion, as you know, it's heavy, it's dark, it's crushing, it's evil, it's just perfectly balances death and doom. The synths added to it give it that dark overtone, and it's a timeless classic, as a lot of the albums that I've spoken about on here are timeless classics. So for anyone new to Death Doom, you don't know where to start, here's one that you can start with. It will be in the description below, so you can have a listen for yourself. And if you ever get a chance to see them live, and hopefully I will, man, for those who have seen them live, I'm very jealous. But yeah, I think it's settled. I'm going to go to Cosmic Void next year to see these guys. So once again, this is Asphyx, and this is their 1991 debut, The Rack, and oof, you cannot go wrong with an album like this. If you love your Death Doom, you're gonna love this. And that is the end of this episode. I know it took a while for a new episode to come out. Obviously, life got in the way, and got 3 more gigs this year with my band, and of course still got more episodes of this series to do, and a collection update which will be coming hopefully either this week or sometime next week. Still got a few more still got a couple more tapes and a few more CDs to listen to, and then I will be getting on to that. But got a lot, so it's going to be split into 2 videos. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode of my Metal Vault. Hopefully, going to get to. I don't think 100 is going to be very realistic now. So if I can get to 90 videos, that would be great. Because obviously, I'm going to be busy throughout the rest of the year now. But again, hope you enjoyed. Thank you for listening to me prattle on and go on tangents sometimes because I always seem to do that. But thank you for being patient. Thank you for checking out this series and my other videos. Be sure to like the video, share it around, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. Until next time, I've been Jake at Jake's Metal Chat. Keep that banner of metal well and truly high. And I'll see you all in another episode of my Metal Vault. Do take care of yourselves.